My daughter-in-law convinced me to let her handle my investments. When I caught her stealing, she pushed me down the stairs. But my security camera caught everything. If you're watching this, hit subscribe and comment where you're watching from. My story is about to begin, and I promise you, revenge doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. I never saw the betrayal coming, not from my own family. The pain in my hands had worsened that morning, my fingers refusing to cooperate as I tried to sort through the stack of financial documents on my desk. 3 years after Richard's death, I still wasn't used to managing everything alone, and the arthritis certainly wasn't helping. "Mom, you shouldn't be struggling with all this paperwork," Michael said, watching me from the doorway of my study. My son's tailored suit and perfect posture screamed successful corporate lawyer, but his eyes still held that boyish concern. "It's nothing," I lied, rubbing my knuckles. The inheritance from Aunt Margaret had arrived last week, on top of Richard's life insurance. More money, more paperwork, more reminders of being alone at 62. "Vanessa could help, you know." Michael crossed the room, resting his hand on my shoulder. "She manages portfolios twice this size every day." I glanced at the family photo on my desk. My daughter-in-law's confident smile stared back at me. 10 years as a financial advisor at Preston and Wallace. I'd seen her name in the Boston Financial Times. "I wouldn't want to impose," I said, though the idea tempted me. The growing pile of statements and forms had become increasingly intimidating. Later that evening, the smell of rosemary roast chicken filled my dining room as Michael, Vanessa, and Emily, my 17-year-old granddaughter, joined me for our monthly family dinner. "Eleanor, I read about your community center receiving that grant," Vanessa said, refilling my wine glass. "I always admired how you stay involved. Just because I'm retired doesn't mean I'm dead," I laughed. My hands trembled slightly as I reached for my water, sending drops across the tablecloth. A look passed between Michael and Vanessa, too quick to interpret, but it made something tighten in my chest. "Mom, we've been talking," Michael started. "With your arthritis getting worse." "What Michael's trying to say," Vanessa interrupted, her voice smoothly professional, "is that I'd be happy to take this burden off your shoulders." She gestured toward my hands. "Financial management is what I do best. You've worked hard enough." "I don't know." My hesitation hung in the air. "It would be a limited power of attorney," she explained, leaning forward. "You'd have complete transparency. I'd just handle the day-to-day operations, investments, making sure everything's optimized." "Think about it, Grandma," Emily chimed in. "You could focus on your book club and volunteer work instead of boring paperwork." Michael nodded enthusiastically. "Vanessa has helped half our family with their finances. Dad would want you taken care of." The mention of Richard made my throat tighten. What would he think? He'd always trusted me with our finances, but he'd also believed in adapting to change. "We'd set it up so you could monitor everything," Vanessa assured me, her manicured hand covering mine. "I just want to help family." I looked into her eyes, sincere, competent, trustworthy, and pushed aside that faint whisper of unease. "Well," I said finally, forcing a smile, "I suppose it makes sense to have a professional in the family handle things." Vanessa's answering smile was brilliant. "You won't regret this, Eleanor, this. I promise you're in good hands." I didn't realize then just how wrong those words would prove to be. 8 months passed before I noticed the first troubling signs. The monthly investment reports grew increasingly sporadic, arriving weeks late with less detail than before. When April's statement finally arrived in mid-May, something felt off about the numbers. "Vanessa, could you explain this section?" I asked during her brief visit, pointing to a significant withdrawal. She barely glanced at it. "Oh, that's just portfolio rebalancing. We're moving some assets to more tax-advantaged positions." She tapped rapidly on her phone. "The market's been volatile, but this amount seems—" "It's standard procedure, Eleanor." Her smile remained fixed, but her eyes hardened slightly. "These technical details can be confusing without a background in finance. That's why you have me, remember?" The condescension in her tone made me straighten my spine, a reflex from 30 years of commanding classrooms. But before I could press further, Michael called from the kitchen, and the moment passed. A week later, I visited First National to resolve an issue with my credit card. Mr. Patterson, the branch manager who'd known me for decades, frowned at his computer screen. "Mrs. Wilson, There seems to be a discrepancy. Your power of attorney documentation has been expanded. He turned the monitor toward me. This grants much broader control than what we initially processed. My stomach dropped. That can't be right. I only authorized limited financial oversight. Your signature is here, he said, pointing to a line at the bottom of the document. I leaned closer. It looked like my handwriting, but I had no memory of signing this expanded agreement. That night I called Ruth, my oldest friend from my teaching days. I need someone discreet, I whispered, though I was alone in the house. Someone who understands security systems. James, she replied without hesitation. My son's colleague. After my TED passed, James set up my whole house. He's trustworthy. James arrived 2 days later, a former military man with kind eyes and methodical hands. I told him about a recent break-in down the street and my concerns about living alone at my age. He installed visible cameras at all entrances, but when I quietly requested additional hidden cameras in my home office, his expression shifted subtly. Mrs. Wilson, is there something specific you're worried about? I hesitated, then said simply, sometimes it's better to be certain. At Emily's birthday celebration that weekend, I observed Vanessa from across the room as she chatted with Michael's colleagues. Eleanor gets confused with all the financial terminology, she was saying, voice lowered but not enough. Her memory isn't what it used to be, poor thing. I felt a chill as Michael shifted uncomfortably, but remained silent beside her. That night, I made a second call to James. The book club discussion about Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None had just reached its climax when my phone vibrated. An alert from the security system. Are you all right, Eleanor? Ruth asked as I fumbled with my tablet. Fine, just checking something, I murmured, angling the screen away from curious eyes. The footage was crystal clear. Vanessa in my office, methodically going through my filing cabinet. She pulled out folders, photographed documents, then replaced them exactly as she'd found them. I watched as she logged into my computer using a password I'd never given her. Over the next week, I reviewed hours of similar recordings. Vanessa visited when she knew I'd be out, sometimes with Michael, often alone. One Tuesday afternoon, she spent 40 minutes on the phone while sitting at my desk. I've diversified most of the old lady's portfolio, she said to someone, swiveling in my chair. The Horizon Consulting transfers are working perfectly. No, Michael has no idea. He thinks I'm just helping his mom avoid elder financial abuse. Her laugh made my blood run cold. By the end of the year, we can move everything without raising flags. A quick internet search revealed Horizon Consulting was registered just last year. Its owner, Lisa Miller, shared the same distinct chin and eyes as Vanessa, her sister, according to Facebook photos where they posed arm in arm at family gatherings. My semi-annual checkup with Dr. Torres gave me another piece of the puzzle. After he left to take a call, I asked his nurse for a copy of my records, claiming I was organizing all my medical information. Later, alone at home, I read with growing horror. Patient exhibits signs of cognitive decline, occasional confusion about financial matters, potential early dementia indicators. None of these symptoms had ever been discussed with me, nor had I experienced them. The pieces fit together like a grotesque puzzle. Vanessa was systematically gaslighting me, building a paper trail of mental decline while siphoning my assets into her sister's company. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. That evening, I called Barbara Green, an elder law attorney I'd met at a library fundraiser. Her secretary scheduled an appointment for Thursday morning. I never made it to that meeting. Wednesday night, headlights swept across my living room windows unexpectedly. Michael and Vanessa appeared at my door, faces arranged in expressions of concern. "Mom, we wanted to check on you," Michael said, embracing me awkwardly. "Vanessa noticed some unusual activity in your accounts." "Really?" I kept my voice neutral. "Like transfers to Horizon Consulting?" The flicker in Vanessa's eyes was almost imperceptible, but the quick glance she shot Michael spoke volumes. He looked genuinely confused. "Mom, what are you talking about?" Michael asked. "Eleanor's confused again," Vanessa interjected smoothly, mixing up company names. "This is exactly what I've been worried about. I needed evidence." "Let me show you something upstairs," I said, moving toward the staircase. "I'll help you," Vanessa offered, following closely. In the upstairs hallway, out of Michael's sight, I turned to face her. I know what you're doing with my money, I said quietly. The unauthorized transfers, the fake medical records. Her expression hardened. No one will believe you. You're just a confused old woman. I have recordings, I replied. Of everything. Fear flashed across her face, replaced instantly by calculation. She stepped toward me, her voice dropping to a whisper. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Her hands shot out suddenly, connecting with my shoulders. The sensation of falling seemed to last forever. I heard myself cry out, saw the ceiling spin above me, felt the sickening impact of each stair against my body. At the bottom, through waves of pain, I heard Vanessa screaming. Michael, help! She fell! I tried to catch her, but I couldn't hold on. Darkness closed in around the edges of my vision as my son's panicked face appeared above me. The hospital ceiling came into focus first, sterile white tiles and fluorescent lights that made my head pound. Every breath sent sharp pains through my ribcage. Mrs. Wilson, can you hear me? A young doctor leaned over me, penlight flashing across my eyes. Yes, I managed, my voice barely audible. I'm Dr. Chen, your neurologist. You've had a serious fall, fractured hip, 3 broken ribs, and a concussion. Do you remember what happened? Before I could answer, the door opened. Vanessa entered, followed closely by Michael. Her face immediately transformed into a mask of sympathy. She's awake. Oh, thank goodness. She rushed to my bedside, gripping my hand painfully tight. We've been so worried, Eleanor. The stairs, I whispered, looking directly at Michael. She pushed. See what I mean? Vanessa interrupted, addressing Dr. Chen. Confusion. She's been having these episodes for months now. She stroked my hand in a grotesque parody of compassion. Eleanor, you were confused and fell. I tried to catch you, remember? That's not... Pain shot through my side as I tried to sit up. Mom, please stay still, Michael said, genuine concern in his eyes. The doctor says you need to rest. Dr. Chen made notes on her tablet. Mrs. Wilson, it's common for patients with concussions to experience some memory issues around the traumatic event. I'm not confused, I insisted, but I could see doubt in my son's eyes. Over the next week, Vanessa maintained a near constant presence in my hospital room, carefully controlling all interactions. The few times Michael visited alone, she would appear within minutes, as if summoned by some sixth sense. Michael, I attempted during a rare moment when Vanessa stepped out to take a call. You need to check my security cameras. The footage. Mom, there's no footage, he said gently. Vanessa said the system malfunctioned last week. We're getting it fixed while you recover. My heart sank. She was erasing evidence. On my 10th day in the hospital, Emily slipped in alone while her parents were at a financial planning meeting. Grandma, she whispered, her young face serious. Something weird is happening. Dad and Vanessa are fighting about money, and she's been saying you need to go to a special care facility instead of coming home. I took her hand, squeezing it weakly. Emily, I need your help. My tablet at home, there's an app that looks like a blue shield. The password is your birthday. She frowned. The security system? Please just check it. Don't let them know. Emily nodded, her eyes reflecting the same determination I'd seen in the mirror all my life. I will, Grandma. Tomorrow after school. She slipped out moments before Vanessa returned, smiling brightly and carrying flowers. Good news, Eleanor. We found a wonderful rehabilitation center in New Hampshire. Very exclusive. I forced a smile, letting my hand tremble visibly. Whatever you think is best, dear. For the first time in my life, I embraced appearing weak. It was now my greatest protection. The security footage is still there, Grandma, Emily whispered during her visit the next afternoon. She'd claimed to be bringing homework assignments, but had cleverly positioned herself where the hospital security camera couldn't capture our conversation. I saw everything. She pushed you. Relief washed over me. Thank God for James and his backups. Vanessa tried to delete it all, Emily continued. I saw her at your computer yesterday. She was furious when she couldn't access the cloud storage. Did you make copies? Emily nodded, eyes sharp with intelligence. On a flash drive hidden in my calculus textbook. Dad never touches that. I managed a smile despite the pain. You're braver than I was at your age. What do we do now? Before I could answer, Dr. Chen entered with her clipboard. Mrs. Wilson, your neurological results are excellent. No signs of cognitive impairment whatsoever. That can't be right. Vanessa interjected from the doorway, startling us all. She's been confused for months, Doctor. Chen's expression remained professional, but her eyes narrowed slightly. Interestingly, there's no evidence of any degenerative condition. In fact, Mrs. Wilson's cognitive function tests are well above average for her age group. Tests can be misleading, Vanessa insisted, moving to my bedside. I see her daily behavior. Nevertheless, Dr. Chen continued, I've requested a consultation with Diane Lopez from Social Services. She gave me a meaningful look. Standard protocol for patients in your situation, Mrs. Wilson. Vanessa's fingers dug into the bed rail. That's unnecessary. We're family. Hospital policy, Dr. Chen replied evenly. Now, if you'll excuse us, I need to examine my patient privately. After a tense moment, Vanessa left, her heels clicking sharply down the hallway. When we were alone, Dr. Chen lowered her voice. Mrs. Wilson, is there something you want to tell me about your home situation? I hesitated, weighing my options. Revealing everything might put me at greater risk if Vanessa learned I was building a case. I'm concerned about returning home, I said carefully, but I don't want to go to a facility far from my support network. Dr. Chen studied me, understanding in her eyes. I can recommend home health care instead, and Ms. Lopez specializes in elder advocacy. She might suggest resources you'd find helpful. That afternoon, Diane Lopez visited, a sharp-eyed woman with a gentle voice and a briefcase full of pamphlets about senior rights and financial protection. Sometimes, she said quietly, after I shared a carefully edited version of my concerns, what we need is someone who understands both legal and medical systems. I often work with Robert Jenkins. He has experience with complex family situations. She left his business card under my water pitcher, hidden from casual observation. That night, I called the number using Emily's phone. Mr. Jenkins, I whispered after explaining my situation. I need to protect myself without anyone knowing I'm doing so. His response was measured. Mrs. Wilson, what you're describing suggests financial exploitation and possibly attempted murder. We need to move carefully but decisively. For the first time since my fall, I felt something beyond fear. Determination. When Dr. Chen recommended home health care instead of a rehabilitation facility, Vanessa couldn't hide her displeasure. That's not what we discussed, she snapped, then quickly composed herself. I mean, Eleanor deserves the best care. The New Hampshire Center has excellent reviews. Research shows patients recover better in familiar environments, Dr. Chen replied calmly. And Mrs. Wilson's insurance fully covers home health care. I watched their exchange through half-closed eyes, playing the role of the docile patient. Vanessa had underestimated me once. She wouldn't make that mistake again. Patricia Wilson, no relation, she joked when we met, became my home health nurse, a no-nonsense woman with surprisingly strong arms for helping me navigate my recovery. Her husband's job as a financial crimes detective was information Robert Jenkins had deemed relevant. Take these twice daily, Vanessa instructed on my first day home, handing me unmarked pills, different from my hospital medication. Patricia smoothly intercepted them. I'll need to log all medications through the hospital pharmacy system, she said pleasantly. Protocol. The dance continued for days. Vanessa projecting the image of the devoted daughter-in-law, while Patricia documented every inconsistency, every attempted overreach. Meanwhile, Robert Jenkins moved with surgical precision. First, he secured an emergency revocation of the power of attorney based on Dr. Chen's certification of my mental competency. Then, he obtained temporary freezes on accounts connected to Horizon Consulting. When Emily visited, ostensibly to help with my physical therapy exercises, she brought updates from home. Dad found something in his office files, she whispered. Papers with your signature he doesn't remember? He's been asking Vanessa questions. How is she responding? Defensive. They're fighting more. Last night I heard him ask about money missing from their joint account. She said it was for high-yield investments. I nodded, unsurprised. Vanessa's house of cards is starting to collapse. That evening, as Patricia helped me into bed, she mentioned casually, my husband says Horizon Consulting has come up in other cases. Elderly clients reporting unusual financial losses. A pattern, I murmured. Evidence, she corrected. The physical transformation of recovery became a metaphor for my strategy. Each day, I appeared slightly more confused in Vanessa's presence, dropping things, forgetting simple words, staring vacantly. When alone with my allies, I was sharp, strategic, meticulous. Dr. Torres, confronted privately by Robert about the fabricated symptoms in my medical records, blanched visibly. I only documented what was reported to me, he stammered, by family members. Without independent verification? Robert asked mildly. The medical board might find that interesting. Within days, Dr. Torres provided a corrected assessment declaring me cognitively sound with no evidence of dementia or confusion. The pieces were aligning. My weakness had become my strength, my silence, my weapon. Vanessa still believed she was the predator. She didn't realize she'd become the prey. They're going to arrest her next week, Robert informed me during our scheduled physical therapy session, our cover for legal consultations. The DA has enough evidence for financial fraud charges, but the attempted murder case needs strengthening. I nodded, feeling strangely calm. What's our strategy until then? Continue appearing vulnerable. Don't change anything that might alert her. The charade had become second nature, shuffling steps when Vanessa visited, fumbling with utensils, responding to questions with vague smiles. Each performance fueled her confidence, lowered her guard. Meanwhile, the investigation expanded. Financial forensics revealed Vanessa had diverted nearly $380,000 of my assets to various shell companies. Detective Wilson's team discovered connections to 3 other elderly victims, all clients with cognitive issues, according to documentation Vanessa had helped create. Dr. Chen continued as my official medical advocate, systematically documenting my actual cognitive state while maintaining our cover story publicly. Her detailed reports would become crucial testimony. Patricia established a routine of checking the security system daily, our cover for ensuring the surveillance footage remained intact and backed up. James had added additional cameras, capturing every interaction in my home. The most difficult part was maintaining the facade with Michael. I ached seeing him torn between suspicion of his wife and concern for me. Mom, I found some inconsistencies in the trust documents, he mentioned during one visit when Vanessa was absent. His legal training had finally overcome his emotional blindness. Signatures that don't quite match. I kept my expression blank. What documents, dear? His face fell at my apparent confusion, exactly as planned. But later, as he was leaving, I gripped his hand with surprising strength. Michael, I whispered, trust your instincts. Always. The confusion in his eyes told me he'd caught the momentary clarity in mine, but uncertainty kept him silent. That night, Vanessa called unexpectedly. Eleanor, I've been reviewing your accounts, she said, voice honey-sweet. The medical expenses are adding up faster than expected. I'm thinking we should consider selling the house. My house? I kept my voice tremulous. But Richard and I... It's too much for you to manage now, she pressed. Besides, the rehabilitation center I mentioned would be a better environment long-term. I suppose you know best, I murmured. I've already spoken to a realtor friend, she continued, emboldened by my compliance. She can list it quietly. No stress for you. After hanging up, I immediately called Robert. She's accelerating her timeline. The house is her next target. Perfect, he replied. The more aggressive she gets, the stronger our case becomes. Every conversation is being recorded, Eleanor. Every move she makes builds our evidence. Later, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling Richard and I had painted together 40 years ago. The home where we'd raised Michael, hosted countless dinners, built a life. I thought of Vanessa's cold calculation, her willingness to discard decades of my history for financial gain. For the first time, anger fully replaced my fear. Not the hot, blinding rage that leads to mistakes, but something colder and more focused. A clarity of purpose that straightened my spine and steadied my hands. Vanessa had chosen the wrong woman to underestimate. I found something you should see, Michael said, his voice tight with suppressed emotion. He'd arrived unannounced, catching me during a rare moment when Patricia was running errands and I was alone. I maintained my confused facade. Something nice, dear? He placed a folder on the coffee table. Financial documents with your signature, authorizing transfers to companies I've never heard of. His lawyer's precision showed in his organized evidence. The signatures match perfectly, too perfectly, like they were traced or digitally replicated. I blinked vacantly at the papers. "Mom," he pressed, "these are serious discrepancies. As your son and an attorney, I can't ignore this." The moment had come earlier than expected. I studied my son. The dark circles under his eyes, the new lines around his mouth. He'd lost weight. "Michael," I said softly, dropping the act, "I think you already know what's happening." His head snapped up at the clarity in my voice. "Mom, check the blue security app on my tablet. Password is Emily's birthday." His hands trembled slightly as he navigated to the files. I watched his expression change as he viewed the footage. Vanessa searching my office, making calls about the old lady's money, and finally, most damning of all, the clear video of her pushing me down the stairs. "Oh God," he whispered, face ashen. "How long have you known?" "Since before the fall," I admitted. "I've been gathering evidence." "Why didn't you tell me?" Pain and betrayal flashed in his eyes. "Would you have believed me over your wife? Without proof?" His silence was answer enough. "I've been working with Robert Jenkins," I continued, sliding a business card across the table. "He's coordinating with the district attorney's office." Michael stared at the card, then back at me. "You've been pretending to be confused this whole time. It was safer that way." A harsh laugh escaped him. "While I've been defending Vanessa, telling people my mother was losing her cognitive abilities," his voice broke. "I'm a lawyer, Mom. I should have seen the signs." "She fooled everyone, Michael. That was her specialty." He stood abruptly, pacing the room. "She suggested selling your house yesterday. Said it would simplify your care needs." "I know. And the New Hampshire facility. It's 3 hours away. I researched it last night and discovered it severely restricts visitor access and phone privileges." His eyes met mine, horror dawning. "She was trying to isolate you completely." "Yes." Michael collapsed back into his chair, head in his hands. "What happens now?" "Robert will contact you officially tomorrow as my legal representative. The DA needs your testimony about the documents you found. You want me to testify against my wife." It wasn't a question. "I want justice, Michael, and protection for any other victims she might target in the future." He looked up, tears streaming down his face. "I trusted her with everything. My mother, my career reputation, our future." His voice hardened. "Tell Robert I'll cooperate fully." As he left, shoulders squared with newfound resolve, I felt the weight of his pain. Vanessa had destroyed more than just finances. She'd shattered the foundation of his life, but within that destruction lay the seeds of something stronger. Truth, painful as it was, would finally bring healing. The arrest occurred on a Wednesday morning. I wasn't present. Robert had insisted I remain safely at home with Patricia while the police detained Vanessa at her office. Michael called immediately afterward, his voice hollow. They took her computer and files. The officers were professional. Her colleagues watched everything. "Are you okay?" I asked, concern for my son overriding everything else. "No," he answered honestly, "but I will be." The news spread quickly. Emily arrived after school, eyes red from crying. "Why, Grandma?" she asked, curled beside me on the sofa. "We had everything. A good life, a happy family. Why would she do this?" I stroked her hair, remembering doing the same when she was small. Some people are never satisfied with what they have. They always want more, no matter the cost to others. Dad's a wreck. He blames himself for not seeing it. "We all missed the signs," I said gently. "Even me, until it was almost too late." The preliminary hearing revealed the extent of Vanessa's crimes. Beyond my case, prosecutors had uncovered evidence linking her to 4 other elderly victims, all with falsified documentation of cognitive decline, all with substantial assets diverted to shell companies connected to her sister. Robert kept me updated on the legal proceedings. "She's claiming you misunderstood her intentions," he reported. "Says the transfers were legitimate investment strategies and that you approved everything." "And the video of her pushing me down the stairs?" Her attorney tried to have it excluded as illegally obtained evidence, but the judge denied the motion. "The footage is damning, Eleanor." Michael threw himself into assisting the prosecution, providing documentation from his own law firm that Vanessa had used to facilitate her schemes. His testimony about finding forged signatures and backdated documents strengthened the case considerably. The press caught wind of the story. framing it as a cautionary tale about elder financial abuse. I declined all interviews, but authorized Robert to issue a brief statement emphasizing the importance of proper oversight and protection for vulnerable seniors. Dr. Torres faced a medical board inquiry for his role in falsifying my medical records. Though he claimed he'd only documented what Vanessa had reported, his failure to independently verify symptoms resulted in a 6-month license suspension and mandatory ethics training. First National Bank, embarrassed by their failure to detect the fraudulent power of attorney modifications, quietly settled a civil claim without admission of wrongdoing, implementing new verification procedures for all similar documents. Lisa Miller, Vanessa's sister and co-conspirator, accepted a plea deal in exchange for testimony against Vanessa, revealing their long-running scheme targeting wealthy seniors with limited family oversight. Through it all, I maintained my public composure, appearing at court only when absolutely necessary. The media portrayed me as a frail victim who'd narrowly escaped a predator, an image I neither confirmed nor denied. Let them underestimate me, as Vanessa had. In private, I worked with Patricia on rebuilding my physical strength, graduating from walker to cane, reclaiming my independence step by painful step. One evening, as autumn painted my garden in amber and gold, Michael visited with legal papers, the final divorce filing. 20 years of marriage, he said quietly, staring at his signature. All built on lies. I squeezed his hand. Not everything was a lie. Emily wasn't. He nodded slowly. She wants to change her last name to Wilson, your maiden name. What do you think about that? I think, he said with the first genuine smile I'd seen in months, that she couldn't choose a stronger name to carry forward. The courtroom fell silent as I approached the witness stand, my cane tapping a steady rhythm against the polished floor. After months of legal maneuvering, Vanessa's trial had finally begun. I felt her eyes on me as I took my seat, the first time we'd been in the same room since her arrest. She'd lost weight in custody, her designer clothes replaced by a conservative blue suit clearly selected to project trustworthiness. Mrs. Wilson, the prosecutor began, please tell the court about your relationship with the defendant. For the next hour, I methodically recounted the progression of events, from the initial power of attorney to the discovery of financial discrepancies, the installation of security cameras, and ultimately the assault that nearly took my life. Why didn't you confront Mrs. Montgomery immediately when you suspected fraud? The prosecutor asked. I needed evidence, I replied simply. Without it, it would have been my word against hers, and she had already begun creating a paper trail suggesting I was cognitively impaired. When the security footage played, showing Vanessa clearly pushing me down the stairs, gasps echoed through the courtroom. I kept my eyes forward, refusing to look at either Vanessa or Michael during this most painful evidence. Vanessa's attorney attempted to portray me as a manipulative mother-in-law who had orchestrated an elaborate scheme to come between his client and her husband. Mrs. Wilson, isn't it true that you never approved of your son's marriage? He asked. No, that's not true. I welcomed Vanessa into our family completely. Yet you installed hidden cameras in your home specifically to monitor her? I installed security measures after discovering financial discrepancies and unauthorized changes to my legal documents, I corrected. The cameras were to protect my assets, not to spy on family members who weren't committing crimes. His questions grew increasingly desperate as the evidence mounted against his client. When he suggested my fall had been accidental and that I'd manufactured the assault allegations due to confusion from my concussion, Dr. Chen's testimony thoroughly debunked the claim. Michael's testimony came next, professionally delivered but emotionally devastating as he detailed discovering his wife's deception and his own unwitting role in facilitating her access to my finances. I believed my wife was helping my mother, he stated, voice steady despite his obvious pain. Instead, she was systematically exploiting her and creating a false narrative of cognitive decline to justify taking control of her assets. When Vanessa finally took the stand, she projected wounded innocence, claiming she'd only been trying to protect my financial interests against my declining judgment. Eleanor was making concerning decisions, she insisted. I was afraid she would be taken advantage of by others. By others besides yourself, you mean? The prosecutor countered, producing evidence of the nearly $380,000 she had diverted. The jury deliberated for just 4 hours before returning with their verdict. I sat straight-backed as the forewoman read the charges. Guilty on all counts, including financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, fraud, forgery, and assault, with intent to cause serious bodily harm. Vanessa's composure finally cracked as the verdict was read, her face contorting in disbelief. Our eyes met briefly across the courtroom, her shock meeting my steady gaze. In that moment, I felt no triumph, only a profound sadness for what greed had destroyed. Outside the courthouse, reporters clamored for statements. Michael shielded me from their questions as Robert delivered a brief comment. Justice has been served. Mrs. Wilson now asks for privacy as her family begins to heal. In the car afterward, Emily took my hand. It's really over, isn't it? The trial is, I replied. The healing takes longer. Michael nodded from the driver's seat, his eyes meeting mine in the rearview mirror. But we'll do it together. For the first time in nearly 2 years, I believed him completely. 18 months after the verdict, I watched spring unfold in my garden. The same house Vanessa tried to sell out from under me now stands as a symbol of resilience. The walker and wheelchair are long gone, though the cane remains, a permanent reminder of what nearly broke me, but didn't. Vanessa received 9 years in prison. The financial recovery was partial. About 60% of my assets were recovered, the rest spent or hidden beyond reach. But my needs are modest, and justice brought something money couldn't buy: peace. Michael has emerged from the shadow of betrayal, changed but stronger. His divorce finalized quickly, he threw himself into establishing a new legal practice focused on elder protection law. Our relationship has deepened, built on honest communication and hard-earned trust. Emily started college last fall, majoring in criminal justice with a minor in gerontology. Grandma's case, as she calls it, sparked her interest in protecting vulnerable populations. Looking good, Eleanor, James says, adjusting the new simplified security system he's installing. His security business has flourished, partly due to referrals from my community presentations on elder financial protection. You're not so bad yourself, I reply, offering him coffee. Our friendship has become one of the unexpected gifts of this journey. The doorbell rings as Patricia arrives for our weekly lunch, no longer my nurse, but a dear friend. Her husband, now promoted to lead the financial crimes unit, still consults me occasionally on cases involving elder exploitation. Guess who I saw at the courthouse yesterday, Patricia says, as we settle on the patio. Robert Jenkins. He's using your case as a teaching example for new prosecutors. I smile. Good. If my experience helps protect even one person, some good has come from it. The afternoon sun warms my face as Michael and Emily arrive for our Sunday tradition. They bring groceries, I provide the kitchen, and together we prepare a meal while sharing stories of our week. Dad's firm is representing another older woman whose financial advisor was stealing from her, Emily announces, chopping vegetables beside me. He says they're using your case as precedent. Michael nods. The DA called it the Eleanor Wilson effect. More financial institutions implementing verification protocols specifically for elderly clients. After dinner, as twilight softens the edges of the garden, Michael refills our glasses. A toast, he says, raising his. To Mom, who taught me that true strength isn't in never falling, but in how you rise afterward. To Grandma, Emily adds, who showed me that age is just a number and badassery is timeless. I laugh, accepting their tributes with a nod. To family, I respond. The real kind, built on truth, tested by fire, and stronger for the breaking. Later, alone in my bedroom, I look at the photograph of Richard on my nightstand. You'd be proud of our son, I whisper. He found his way back to himself. The scars remain, physical ones that ache when rain approaches, emotional ones that occasionally wake me in the night, but they've become part of my story, not its conclusion. Tomorrow, I'll give another presentation at the Senior Center about recognizing the signs of financial exploitation. Next week, I'll meet with legislators supporting stronger protections for vulnerable adults. My voice, once nearly silenced, now carries weight and purpose. The betrayal that nearly destroyed me instead revealed a strength I never knew I possessed, not just to survive, but to transform suffering into meaning. My revenge wasn't in Vanessa's punishment, but in refusing to be diminished by what she did. Some might call it justice. I call it reclaiming my power, one deliberate step at a time. The most satisfying victory isn't what was done to my betrayer, but what I became in spite of her, stronger, wiser, and finally, completely my own. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.